Snow fell in slow, gentle spirals over the human settlement of outpost hearths, turning the metal rooftops white and softening the sharp alien edges of the world beyond the shield dome. Winter on this planet was long and bitter, but inside one small habitat near the colony's edge, warmth ruled the day. Grandma Liza called it proper weather. She sat in her favorite rocking chair, a thick knitted shawl wrapped around her shoulders, a basket of yarn resting at her feet. Her hands moved with a steady, practiced confidence, knitting something small, much smaller than a human sweater. The fire heater hummed quietly, filling the room with its warmth and a comforting orange glow. At her feet, 3 kittens lay tangled together in a fluffy pile, purring like tiny engines. One was gray, one was orange, and one was pure white, their ears twitching each time a snowflake tapped against the window. And just across the rug, piled together on a mountain of cushions, were the alien cubs. They looked nothing like humans. They had round bodies covered in soft, color-shifting fur, 4 wide-set eyes that blinked independently, and small, curled tails that flicked whenever they were excited. To the wider galaxy, the Valeri cubs were considered energetic, curious, and just a little bit destructive. To Grandma Lisa, however, they were just children who needed snacks and warm socks. "Now don't you 3 roll into the kittens again," Grandma said gently, not even looking up from her knitting. "They're sleeping." One of the alien cubs Spip froze mid-roll, his 4 eyes widening in surprise. Slowly, very carefully, Pip scooted back an inch, his tail curling in a clear apology. "Good lad," Grandma murmured, her focus still on her work. The Valeri cubs had arrived at the outpost months ago, after their research vessels suffered a catastrophic power failure during a storm. The humans had taken them in without a moment's hesitation. The rest of the galaxy found that decision baffling, but humans always did things like that. Outside the dome, the temperature was dropping to dangerously low levels. Icy winds howled across the frozen plains. Inside, Grandma was pouring hot cocoa into mismatched mugs while the cubs watched with utter fascination. "It's not nutrient paste?" asked Zuri, the smallest of the cubs, sniffing the rising steam. "Nope," Grandma replied with a warm smile. "It's chocolate, milk, sugar, and a little bit of love." The cubs exchanged glances. Humans were always saying that. Love, as if it were a tangible ingredient. They each took a careful, tentative sip. Their colorful fur shimmered with surprise. "It's warm," Pip said softly, his voice full of wonder. "Well, that's the point, dear." Just then, one of the kittens lifted its head, drawn by the sweet smell, and toddled over to them. Zuri gasped, pulling back slightly. "It approaches without fear." "Oh, that's just Whiskers," Grandma said, unfazed. "He's either very brave or very foolish. It's hard to tell." Zuri cautiously extended a single claw. Whiskers immediately headbutted it and began to purr loudly. The little cub squeaked in absolute delight. Across the settlement, alarms briefly flickered as an external sensor detected a rapid rise in storm pressure. In the command center, personnel began preparing emergency protocols. Engineers rushed to tighten the shields, but in the small habitat, Grandma just added another log to the heater and started humming an old Earth tune. The cubs noticed her calmness. "Aren't you worried?" asked Noak, the eldest of the 3. "The storm could breach the outer layer." Grandma chuckled softly. "Oh, that storm's just showing off. This place has been through much worse." She leaned back in her chair and gestured toward the window. "Besides, worrying doesn't keep you warm. Cocoa does." The cubs thought about that. In Valeri culture, elders were respected for their knowledge and their caution. But human elders especially, this one offered something else entirely. It was a confidence that seemed to have no room for fear. As the snow thickened outside, the power flickered once, then went out. The cubs tensed, their fur bristling. The kittens, however, didn't even wake up. Grandma calmly stood, walked over to a small panel on the wall, and flipped a switch. The backup power hummed to life, and the lights came back on. "There we go," she said simply. "That's it?" Noak asked, his voice filled with disbelief. "That's it." The cubs just stared. There was no panic, no shouting, No emergency council. Just quiet competence. They found themselves curling closer to Grandma, drawn in by her warmth and by the strange, effortless sense of safety that humans seem to radiate. Later, Grandma finally finished her knitting. She held up 3 tiny scarves, each one cleverly woven to accommodate their alien neck ridges and tails. "Winter gear," she announced proudly. The cub's eyes sparkled. "For us," Zuri whispered. Well, who else would they be for? They wrapped themselves in the soft scarves, their fur glowing brighter with pure happiness. Zuri sniffed, a little overwhelmed by the gesture. "Humans do this for nonkin?" Grandma smiled, her eyes soft and kind. "You're here. That makes you family." Outside, the storm finally hit with its full, furious force, battering the dome with ice and wind. Sensors screamed their warnings. Distant alarms echoed through the settlement. Inside the small habitat, Grandma gathered everyone closer, the kittens included. "Story time," she said, her voice a comforting anchor in the raging tempest. The cubs leaned in as she began telling a tale of old earth winters of wood cabins buried in snow, of long, dark nights, and of people surviving not by strength alone, but by sticking together. The cubs listened, completely rapt, and in that moment, they finally realized why the galaxy both admired and feared humans. It wasn't because they were the strongest species. It wasn't because they were the smartest. It was because when the universe grew cold and cruel, humans built warmth and they invited everyone inside. By the time the storm finally passed, the cubs had fallen asleep, their new scarves askew, with kittens draped over their heads like furry, purring hats. Grandma watched the snow slow to a gentle fall outside the window. Another winter day survived. Another family made just a little bit bigger, and somewhere in the official Valari records, a new note would later appear. Humans possess an anomalous survival trait. They call it cozy.